Good morning, Year 3 Order, and welcome back to our next maths lesson. Now, we have actually finished all of our multiplication and division lessons from our unit, so we're going to move on to a bit of consolidation, a bit of recap before the end of term. And we're going to go back to focusing on addition and subtraction, which is an area I think we need a little bit more practice on. So let me share my screen quickly now so we can work through the lesson together. So please bear with me for one moment. There we go. As a quick starter activity, I've got, first of all, some blanks for you to fill in. So it says there are blank ones in 110. Have a think about that one. What would our blank be? And the next one says there are blank tens in 100s. It says to complete the questions on a whiteboard, but obviously complete them on paper or anything else that you've got. And then the next one says true or false. There are 14 ones in the number 14. What do you think about that one? Are there 14 ones, or is it something different? See if you can have a go explaining your answer. And again, if you want to pause it there, have a quick pause, have a quick think about those, and then we'll move on together when you're ready. Let's go through those. Hopefully all of us got those first two sentences correct. There are 10 ones in 110, and there are 10 tens in 100. The next one, though, is a little bit more complex. There are 14 ones in number 14. Now, we'd usually show number 14 as 110 and 1, 2, 3, 4 ones, a bit like you can see on my place value grid just there. But we could do some regrouping. We could exchange 110 for 10 extra ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we would have 14 ones. So technically you could use 14 ones to represent the number 14, although we would usually do it with 110 and 4 ones. So whichever one you went for, as long as you explained your answer there, I think you can justify what you have come up with. Moving on, as I said, we're going to be adding 3-digit numbers, and we're going to focus on regrouping today because that's often the area that we find difficult. So we're going to work through some different questions together. There will always be some regrouping in each of them. And I want us to focus on a few questions for each one. So I know, and we all know that we're going to be adding because it said so in our learning intention, but I want you to understand why we're adding. How do we know? First one's quite simple. So the first question says 512 plus 139 is equal to, and we've got to find out what it's equal to. Now have a think about these questions. Am I adding or subtracting? Well, for that question, there's one very clear symbol that tells us the answer to that one. How would you lay it out? If we're going to use the column method, which we practiced in class, how would you show that? And can any of you begin thinking about the difficult column that we're going to have to answer? Have a pause if you want to think about those questions, and we'll move on to work through it together. So I've laid out that question in a column method. So I've made sure my hundreds are lined up in a column, my tens are lined up in a column, and my ones are lined up in a column. And I've also begun showing it as a place value grid. Now, I wonder if you can remember, what do we start with? Do we start with our hundreds? Do we add those first? Or do we start with our ones? Which one do you think? If you said we start with our ones, well done. We always start with our ones, particularly when we got that regrouping there, because that's where the difficulty may come in. Now I've shown my ones, I've got 2 orange coloured ones to represent the 2 ones in 512. And then I've added 9 blue ones to represent the 9 ones in 139. I've spotted a problem here though already. I wonder if any of you can tell me what that is. I've noticed that there are too many ones. We've now got 11 ones in our ones column. I can't write 11 here. We can't do that. So what do I need to do? I wonder if you can think back. What have we done previously when we come across this? Oh, that's where we use our knowledge of tens and ones. We know there are 10 ones in 110. So I'm going to circle 10 ones and I'm going to regroup them to make 1 extra 10. Now I've only got 1 1 left because I took 10 ones to make 110. I've only got one left, but I've got a whole extra 10. So I'm going to put a little 1 here to show that extra 10 that I've just made. Now we move on to our tens column. Again, I've got an orange 10 here to represent the 1, 10, and 512. And I've got 3 blue 10s here to represent the 3 blue, to represent the 3 10s, 139. Now remember, we've also got an extra 10 here because we had 10 ones and we regrouped them into 1 extra 10, which is why I've got that little 1 here. So this time I've got to do 1 plus 3 plus 1. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 10s in total now. So I'm going to write the number 5 just there. And the last one, this column should hopefully be a bit easier now. We had 5 hundreds I got from 512. There's 5 hundreds in it. And I'm adding on 1 extra 100 from the 139. And I've shown that in blue there. So 5 plus 1, I can see there's 6 counters in total there. So my answer is 651. And well done if you got that too. We'll move on to a different example. This one might be a bit difficult, more difficult to prove why it's adding. Let me read it to you. There are 172 sweets in one jar. I'm thinking, right, the number 172, I'm going to keep that in my head. And another 263 in another jar. So 172 and 263, I think they must be our key numbers. How many are there altogether? Now, again, we probably know this is adding because our learning intention is to add. But how do we know for sure that that's adding? Have a think about that question. How do we know for sure? I'd be thinking, right, there's 172 sweets in one jar and another 263 in another jar. So if I put them together to get the total, to work out how many there are altogether, I've got to be adding. There's going to be more sweets altogether. So that's the reason it's adding. Again, have a think about how you lay this out and have a think about what the difficult column might be here. If you want to pause the video and have a go at that one yourself, feel free to do so, and we'll go through it together in a moment. Moving on. Once again, I've shown it as a column method. I've made sure I've been careful to line up my hundreds, line up my tens, line up my ones. And again, I've got that place value grid to help me alongside. Let's start with our place value grid and let's start with the ones. As we discussed, we've got to start with our ones when we're adding in the column method like we are. So I've got 2 orange ones to represent the 2 ones in 172. And I have 3 blue ones to represent the 3 ones in 263. That column is quite nice and easy. 2 plus 3 gives me 5 in total. So in my column method here, I'm going to put the number 5 in just there. I'm thinking this tens column might be the tricky one. Already there seems to be a lot in there. So I had my 7 orange ones to represent the 7 orange tens to represent the 7 tens in 172. And the 6 blue tens here to represent the 6 tens in 263. Now I've got 13 tens in total there. That's far too many. I can't write 13 in my tens column. So what do I need to do? Again, I wonder if any of you know. I'd be thinking here, how many tens make 1 extra 100? And if you said 10 tens make an extra 100, well done. So I'm going to circle 10 of them. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There we go. I've circled 10 of them. And I know that can make 1 extra 100. So I'm going to draw 1 extra 100 just there. Now I've only got 3 tens left. So I can put the 3 tens in that column. And I've got an extra 100. So I'm going to put a little 1 just down below in my column method here to show that extra 100 that we've just made. Now the hundreds column should be fairly easy from here. We had 100 to start with from our 172. We've added 2 more hundreds from our 263, and we've just regrouped to create an extra 100 here. So I've got 1 plus 2 plus 1, which makes 1, 2, 3, 4 in total. So our answer should be 435. And once again, well done if you got that. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of a go yourself this time. So I've got 2 questions for you. I've got the question 354 plus 127. Maybe you can use that similar method to solve that one. Question B is a bit different. I've had a go at 124 plus 147. I've made a bit of a mistake. I wonder if any of you can spot what my mistake is. Maybe you could have a go at correcting my mistake. Maybe you could have a go explaining what mistake I've made. And if you want a further challenge, perhaps you can write some instructions on how to regroup. As always, if you want a little bit of time, feel free to pause the video there and we'll go through it together in a few moments' time. Moving on, let's look at those ones. So for this one, I've just used the column method this time. I've done 4 plus 7. Oh, that makes 11. So I've left one of my ones there and I regrouped 10 ones to make one extra 10, which is why that small one is written here. Right, moving on to my tens column. I've got 5 plus 2, which makes 7, but I've got to remember that extra 10 that I've just created. So 5 plus 2 makes 7, plus 1 more makes 8, which is why there's an 8 in my tens column. And the hundreds column was nice and simple. 3 plus 1 makes 4 in total. Now for question B, it's a bit different. It said spot the mistake. Now the mistake was in my ones column. I did 4 plus 7, a bit like this question. And I just wrote the number 11 in my ones column. Now we know we can't leave the number 11 there because that creates a number that's very different to what it should be. So what we should have done is regrouped 10 of those ones into one extra 10, a bit like we did over here, and shown that just below, and we would have got a completely different answer. And if you want to show me your explanation or show me your correction to that one, please send it into the email address and I'll have a look at that one myself. But well done if you spotted that mistake. Moving on to a bit more of a challenge for you. I've got a number of questions this time. The first one is 324 plus 192 is equal to something. The next question is flipped around, but it's the same idea. 345 plus 262, and you'll just need to the answer at the start this time. Question 3 is a word problem. Tom has 234 stamps and Kamal has 176 stamps. How many do they have in total? We're adding those two together to get our total. And the last one, can you create your own word problem and solve it yourself? If you want a bit more of a challenge, how many different ways can you show each one? I know in class we've used bar models, we've used cherry models, we've used pictures to show it. There might be some others you can think of too. How many different ways can you show it? And lastly, for a challenge X, there's a few different addition calculations shown below. There's some questions to go with it. Which ones carry no digits? So which ones require no regrouping? Which ones have a carrying digit only once? So which one requires one set of regrouping? Which calculations carry a digit twice? So which ones require regrouping twice? Which calculation has the largest answer? Which calculation has the smallest answer? For that one, you don't necessarily need to solve each question, but you've got to have a go at answering those questions. You can do that however you choose. If you'd like some time to pause the video to go through it, please do so now. And in a moment's time, we'll go through those answers together. So I'm not going to show you the method for these ones. If you want a bit more practice with that method, feel free to go back through the video. I'm just going to share those answers with you. So the first one, 324 plus 192. Well done if you got that answer, 516. The tricky column here was the tens column. 9 plus 2 is where that regrouping is required. The next one, 345 plus 262. Well done if you got the answer, 607. Once again, the tens column was the tricky one here. 4 plus 6 will give us 10 tens in that column, so you'd require to regroup all of them, which is why I've got 0 tens here into an extra 100. And last one, Tom has 234 stamps and Kamal has 176 stamps. How many do they have in total? The total was 410. And this one, you had two tricky columns. The ones column required some regrouping and the tens column required some regrouping. So well done if you got the correct answer on that one. That was particularly difficult. If you had to go at Challenge X, send in your answers and I'll have a look through them, as I feel like it would take quite a while to go through that question. As always, thanks for listening, Year 3 Order. I hope you feel like you've developed some of your addition skills and are beginning to feel more confident with regrouping as well. We will be spending a bit more time on that in our next lesson, so we will have some further practice there too. Thanks for listening, Year 3, and see you next time. Bye.